I came across an item which claimed to identify the most famous and best-loved poem written in the English language. In America, I think it would be something by Robert Frost. But this was Great Britain, and the poem was Thomas Gray's Elegy written in a country churchyard. Gray was one of 12 children and the only one to survive infancy. His father is usually described as psychotic, so his mother left him and sent her son to Eton, where he was raised by 2 uncles. Gray was said to have spent his youth reading and avoiding athletics. He went on to Cambridge, where he found the masters mad with pride, and the students to be sleepy, drunken, dull, illiterate things. Nonetheless, Gray spent his life as a Cambridge scholar. He did not marry, was known for his vast learning and sense of humor, was said to be inordinately fussy, and published a total of 13 poems in his lifetime. One of them a brilliant mock ode on the death of a friend's cat, another a sad ode on the death of a friend. He feared that his collected poems would be mistaken for the work of a flea. Despite this, he had quite a reputation as a poet, and was asked to be the nation's poet laureate, an honor he refused. As for the poem, the Elegy, as it is known, I think it is popular because it is short, and unlike a lot of poetry, accessible. I read it once a day for a week, tried to let it soak in. Since it was published in 1750, some of the language was awkward for me. Wordsworth thought Gray employed a lamentably elaborate poetic diction, and it is so. Gray uses classical references, flowery phrases, Latinisms, but the Elegy is a very peaceful poem, and its subject matter is both familiar and essential to us all. And Gray treats death as an end, but not a horror. The poem is like a story. It wanders, it has movement, and it is thoughtful, all of which gives it, I think, a living presence. The opening sets the scene. It is rural, not of the city, and the sun, as it should in an elegy, is setting. And this quiet world is inhabited by the dead, villagers, modest people, people whose lives were defined and circumscribed by their poverty. They did not have the chance to do much else but live, work, and die. Gray compares them to those who did great things, who are honored with impressive memorials and masses in huge cathedrals. For these people, Gray says, there was none of that. And yet, he says, they might have been great. Fame is very much a matter of opportunity as well as talent. And besides, even monumental fame never saved anyone from the grave or gave death second thoughts about letting some notable someone return from the ashes. Yes, these people all laid to rest about him. They might have done great things, but the narrow confines of their lives would not allow it. And even so, their lives did have some quiet pleasures, which these poor souls will never know again. And then, rather surprisingly, the poet himself is addressed, as the one who is so kindly thinking of these departed ones, who are remembered only by small stones, rudely marked, sometimes with a standard biblical phrase. Or they are remembered with a tear or a sigh. And the question is asked of the poet, will anyone remember thee? The hope is that someone will recall him, out walking in the country, bright and early, full of life, and then stopping to pause for some unknown reason, be it sorrow or joy or just to rest. And then one day he is not there, and people wonder what has become of him, until they see his coffin in a church where a small group is gathered to pray for his deliverance. And the poem ends with his epitaph. He too was a stranger to fame and fortune, though he was gifted from birth, blessed with knowledge about life, and therefore touched with melancholy. He had virtues and frailties alike, but no more need be said of them, for now he and they rest in the arms of his Father and his God. This final calm assurance is the seal that marks the close of life and the poem. On the day I stopped reading the elegy, I missed it some. The curfew tolls the knell of parting day. The lowing herd winds slowly o'er the lay. The plowman homeward plods his weary way and leaves the world to darkness and to me.